All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Today, we're going to look into some of the acquisitions related features in Folio. My name is Han Bull. I am a Folio training specialist. I am based out of Brisbane, Australia. My contact details are up on the screen now. So if you have any questions about anything that I covered today, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. So there are lots of acquisitions related apps within Folio, but I wanted to start from the finance app. So a finance app within Folio is a place for you to manage and maintain everything relating to your actual finance. So you'll be managing your fiscal year, your funds, and your ledgers in one application in Folio. And as I've gone through some hierarchy structure when I was going through cataloging and I was introducing the inventory app in Folio, but Finance app also has a little bit of a hierarchy within its app itself. So I wanted to go through this slide quickly with you to go through that app hierarchy. So at the very top of the hierarchy is what we call a fiscal year, which is a 12-month period that you can use to manage your finances. So, and we don't have any guidelines or limitations about how you set up that 12-month. Some libraries like to do from July to June. Some libraries do a calendar year from January to December. Some libraries do have their unique fiscal year. So Folio will accept any 12-month period, regardless of which month you start, as long as it is a full 12-month period. And the next hierarchy from the Finance app is what we call a ledger. And I like to call ledgers, or I like to describe ledgers as buckets of money. So any buckets of money that you need to separate from each other for any reason, you can create ledgers. An example I have up on the screen now would be your external fundings and your internal fundings. So if you have any separate buckets of money, you can create a ledger for those buckets that you currently have for your institution. And then we have what we call a fund. So funds would distinguish specific budgets within each of the ledgers. So for example, in my external funding ledger, I might have a fund for endowments. I might have another fund for fundraising. Or perhaps for my internal funding ledger, I might have a fund for engineering or a fund for medical resources and another fund for history resources and so on. And each of these funds will have its own budgets. So in the fund, we would be allocating however much budget or actual allocation that we have for that specific fiscal year. So this is just a nice slide that will describe the Finance app hierarchy to start with. And very quickly, I just wanted to go through this slide and we'll head into the live demo, but it is optional, but Folio does allow you to also track expense classes within each of the funds. And expense classes are there so that you can track in more detail. So for example, for each of the funds you want to know how much of that fund you have spent towards your equipment, or how much of them were your firm orders, or how much of them were your materials, books and DVD electronic versus physical. So you can really decide on you can just configure your expense classes that will meet your own needs in the settings area in Folio, and that will just help you track your expenses in greater detail. So I just wanted to quickly mention that this is another option that you have for your finances. So here I am in the Finance app within Folio, and I am in my ANZ financial year 2024. And you can see that my fiscal year starts from April to March. And I can have a look into my brief summary of how much cash balance I have for that whole fiscal year, or how much available balance I have. I can also look at my ledger balances. I can have a look into my fund balances that belongs to that whole fiscal year. Now, group is something that I haven't discussed in the slide. And group is something that's optional, that you can just create your own groups, and it is there in Folio so that you can track anything, any of the funds in one group that doesn't necessarily have to belong to the same ledger. So for example, I just wanted to track down anything related to health funds in one place. I can simply create that health fund groups and allocate my health sciences fund, my nursing fund, and my pharmacy fund into that specific group. And then I can also track my spending for that specific funds that I have allocated to a single group. So this is optional, but it's there in case you wanted to track down any funds in a single place. All right, so other than the Finance app, in Folio, you also have your Orders app, you also have your Receiving app, you also have your Invoices app, which are the three other main apps that Acquisitions Librarian would be working closely with. And we also have some helping apps such as your Organizations app, your Serials app. That's kind of a helping app in Folio Acquisitions world. Now, today I do want to go through the whole process of creating an order, receiving your order, and creating those invoices in a single go. And I will here and there mention how these process would differ for your physical orders versus your electronic orders, and for other cases as it comes along. So you can simply go into the Orders app and create a new order from scratch. So if I just go to my actions and create new, I can simply create a order record from scratch. Another way to create the order, which I will be demonstrating today, is starting your order from the Inventory app. So perhaps you currently have this physical resource. It's been very popular at your library and you would like to order a couple more copies of the same book and perhaps place it in a separate location. Now, if you know for sure that you currently have a catalog record for an item that you want to place an order for, you can simply locate that record, click on Actions, and click on the New Order button. Now, this will carry over a lot of metadata from the Inventory app, which will simplify many of the steps, which you'll be able to see as I click on this Next Add POL button here. Folio also allows you to create and save multiple templates. So perhaps if you are placing many orders from Amazon, you can create a template for that Amazon print records. You can also create a template for your ebooks or your ongoing orders and so on. So, and creating a template just means that it will pre-fill many of the fields for you. It will also eliminate any of the fields that you have hidden in your configuration. Now, for the purposes of my demonstration today, I won't be using a template so that I can show you all of the available fields in Folio. Right, so one of the required fields that you will have to make sure you fill in Folio is an organization field, or the vendor field. So from which vendor are you placing this order from? Let's say I am going to order from Amazon. I can simply select that. And there are some of the fields that you have pre-filled in an organization record that will carry over to either the order record or the invoice record, such as any of the discounts that you have agreed on, or any of the payment methods that you have pre-configured in the organization record. Selecting an order type is very important in Folio, as Folio at the end of the fiscal year, you will be performing a fiscal year rollover, and you can decide how you want to roll over differently by different order types. So for today, I will just select a one-time order. Now, one of the features that Folio has is what we call an acquisition unit. It's like creating a glass wall even in between your organization. So perhaps if you have multiple campuses or multiple locations that you manage different acquisition or finances from each other, you can create acquisition units and have other people not be able to see any of the order records that perhaps that you're creating. You can even assign it to one person, and we just need to select a bill to or even ship to addresses. I won't be going into all of the details, but in Folio, I just wanted to quickly highlight that there is a way for you to set up an automated order export to a vendor. And if you just want to exclude any order records from that automated export, you do have that option to keep it manual. I'm going to approve this order and add a purchase order line, which would be the specific items that you will be placing an order. So, and because I came from the inventory record, you can see that many of these fields are already filled in and have been grayed out, indicating that I won't be able to make any changes to them. Now, the very important fields in order records in Folio would be your order formats, as in, are you placing an order for a physical resource or an electronic resource? And depending on your selection, we would be getting a different accordion. So now I've selected physical, and I need to put in the physical resource details. If I change that to electronic, it will show me electronic resource details. So that's another key field. I'm just going to select a acquisition method. Now, another pretty important field in Folio would be your receiving workflow, as in, are you going to order 2 items and receive 2 items, or are you placing a one order, but you'll be receiving 12 items as a result of that single order. So you can kind of track or decide on how you want to track your receiving of your order in Folio is very specific. And I'm just going to add some unit prices here. And I can add additional costs or change the currency or give it a discount. And Folio will give you that option to add a fund distribution at the order record, indicating that you can encumber any of the funds that you currently have. So, and you can even add multiple fund to a single order if you wanted to separate, if you want to spend 50% from one fund and 50% from another fund, Folio will give you that opportunity as well. And Folio will also create some catalog records or your inventory records for you automatically as you are placing an order. So you don't have to place an order, go back to your catalog and create item records or holdings records. Folio will do that for you if you tell Folio to do so. And because we already have an instance record or holdings record, Folio is smart enough to know that it doesn't have to create a duplicate record. In that instance, it will just create any further item records for me. So I'm just going to quickly add location information there. And just go ahead and save and open up the order. Now it brings me back to the inventory app, and if I scroll down further down, I do have an accordion called acquisitions, and here it's giving me another linkage back to that open order record. So you can see that I had an order record from June this year, which is now fully received. I now have an open order that is currently awaiting receipt. So I'll just click into that purchase order line record. And once you have received the items at your library, you can simply click on actions to go ahead and receive these materials. There will be different ways that you can receive records in Folio, but one of the ways is to click on actions from your expected accordion. And you can see that Folio had created 2 expected items for me because it's a synchronized order and receipt quantity. If it was an independent order and receipt quantity, perhaps for your journal subscription, you're placing an order once, but you're getting an issue every month or every quarter, you might have to manually create any expected pieces. But for synchronized order records, Folio will create expected pieces for you. And so you can simply receive these items upon receiving and reviewing the items that you have received at your library. So you can receive one of them or both of them at the same time, and you can add in any further information such as enumeration, chronology, or copy number. You can even add any of the barcodes if you have them already, and you can also add some comments as well. So receiving is fairly simple in Folio. You just need to feel free to add in any further information that you currently have, including your barcode, and then just go ahead and receive these records. Now, one place that I forgot to visit before we went ahead and received these records is back to the Finance app. So let me just go back a step and visit my Finance app, and I'm going to go into the fund that I have used to encumber some of these funds as I was placing that order record. So I'm in my food sciences fund, which is the fund that I have used to create that order record. And you can see that as I was creating an order record, it had encumbered the funds from my purchase order line, which is the initial encumbrance of $110. So if you decide to encumber, it will record those encumbrances in the Finance app in real time. And coming back to that workflow, once you have placed the order and once you have received the order, you can go ahead and create an invoice and pay for those invoices as well. So I'm going to start from my order record again to click on actions and click on new invoice. It just saves me a lot of time and energy in putting in all or filling in all of the necessary information. If you go from scratch, you just have lots to fill in. If you go from the order records, it will just pre-fill in many of the fields for me. So all I need to fill in is put in a date for the invoice. If you wanted to pay against any of the previous fiscal years, you can go ahead and select any of the previous fiscal years with the funds that are still open. And I am just going to select a batch group, which is a required field that connects to your external financial departments. And you can configure them in the settings area, which I won't be going into too much detail for now, but just be aware that you can connect it to your external financial departments from Folio. And at the invoice level, you can add in any adjustments such as shipping or any other tax information that you need to add to that invoice. You can add it into your adjustments area, which I won't be doing today. And then I'll just go ahead and add in an invoice number. And you can see the payment method carries over from that organization record from the organizations app. and I can actually add in an actual invoice, like a PDF version of the invoice in Folio if that's what you do at your library. And if I save and close, it will automatically save that invoice record for me, but I'll get a second notification here that the invoice line has also been saved, which is connected to that purchase order line that I have created. So it has automatically pulled in that information for me. I can add in any other invoice lines from a blank line or add in another purchase order line to that same invoice if you want to pay it off at the same time. So Folio will just give you that opportunity to um, gather all of the purchase orders into a single invoice. Now, so you don't necessarily have to create a single invoice for every single order record that you create, but rather you can use the invoice as in like an envelope to gather all of the purchase orders that you have placed, and so that you can process it and pay it off at the same time. So once you're ready to pay for this invoice, and this will also depend on your workflow, you can configure Folio to add another step to approve any of these invoices, or you can skip that approval part and just go ahead and pay straightforward. Now, once you have made a payment from that invoice, if I revisit the Finance app and just do a hard refresh here on the screen, you can see that Folio has released the encumbrances for me and turned that into an actual expenditure. So Folio will just keep track of all of the transactions for you. It will also give you a link back to any of the purchase order lines or any of the invoices that you have been working with. Now, coming back to my slides, I just wanted to do a little bit of a recap of the acquisitions workflow in Folio for your one-time orders as well as your ongoing orders. So for your one-time orders, you can either place an order from the inventory app or from your orders app. And in the inventory app, it will create a dummy item record with a status of on order. And in the Finance app, if you decided to encumber any of the funds, it will note that encumbrance on the current budget. And you can just go ahead and receive any of the records. And upon receiving, the item status is still on order, but receipt status will change to fully received. And then you can create the invoice either from the Orders app or from the Invoices app. And it will change the item status to in process with fully received status and fully paid status. So the order record will become closed upon fully receiving and fully paying, and the item status will become available as you check it in at the appropriate service point. For ongoing orders, everything is pretty much the same. You can start the order from the inventory or the order record. You might be using independent order and receipt quantity so that you can create how many expected items you have for that specific order. And then you will create the invoice to pay for that invoice, but the item status will, or the receipt and the payment status will be kept as ongoing, indicating that you will keep continuing to use that process of receiving and invoicing. You don't even need to create a new order record or a new purchase order line record. You can keep creating new invoice records every year. Perhaps it's an annual subscription. You can simply come back to that order record and just simply create new invoice records every year and keep receiving any of the materials as you receive them. And you can keep performing that receiving and invoice actions in Folio without having to create any other new order records. Now that just means that you might have to manually close out the order record. So perhaps if you decide that you want to stop subscribing to a specific journal record, you will have to manually close out that order record. But um, upon you get to that point, until you get to that point of wanting to close out that order record, you will be able to continue to receive any of these materials and keep creating and paying for those invoice records. All right, so today I wanted to introduce you to all of the acquisitions related applications in Folio and wanted to go through a very quick version of an acquisitions workflow within Folio. And with many other things that needs to be discussed relating to acquisitions, I apologize for going over time so much, but I appreciate your patience and staying on the line until the end of the session. I don't have any questions in the chat or Q&A, but I will stay around in this meeting room in case anyone has any questions. So thank you for coming to the session, and please feel free to stay around and talk to me if you have any questions. But otherwise, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.